Well, thanks for joining me for AM Talk. I have as my guest this morning Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh. He's the Member of Parliament for Minshia South, and he's also a member of the MPP, vociferous one, another vociferous personality, who is also a member of the CPP, Kwame Jantwa. He's an energy expert, owns a number of energy companies, keeps incorporating them all the time.
Oh, really?
He's also a businessman. You're also a lawyer,
yes.
Yes. Okay, so thanks for joining me. He's the Deputy General Secretary of the CPP. Now, we have to begin our discussions with the news that seemed to have calmed nerves, especially the nerves of the opposition MPP, one of whom we have here. Cocoa price up by 62.7%, and after all the complaints they had, now they'll have some respite, and this is how it goes. A ton now goes for, that's a ton of cocoa beans goes for 5,520 Ghana cedis, and a bag is selling at 345 Ghana cedis. And so now, across the media space yesterday, on discussion programs, we had cocoa farmers from various areas in Ghana giving testimony to how this was significant. You should say this is significant.
Interestingly significant.
Meaning what? Interesting and...
Interestingly significant. The government should not wait for people to complain about short-changing farmers, which I have been very, very vociferous of that. Some of us even thought that the price should hit about 400 Ghana cedis, take a reality. But considering the fact of a lot of circumstances, I am happy. It's a little late, but it's welcome. Because you see, 2 months ago, the government announced that this year they were not going to increase cocoa price. Just 2 months ago. So, and we are all watching the space, the economic space, and we are realizing that if your currency depreciated as it is, and cocoa price is going up, it will be very, very unfair for farmers, because the price that was paid before the raise was about 38% of FOB. NDC Manifesto 2008, they promised when Kufuor delivered 70% FOB in 2008, they said they were going to deliver 70% at least for all. And it had gone as low as 38%. So I think we must commend government for once being bold to tell us and do something that is worth praising. The second thing is that 3 years now, cocoa farmers have not been paid a bonus. And considering that we are doing foreign sales, there have been some accruals that government should share. Cocoa has been the lifeblood of Ghana for a long time. It continues to be. When you look at the producer price that is being given to cocoa farmers, effectively, cocoa farmers are being taxed nearly 30%, probably higher than the corporate tax in this country. So they deserve to be given more. Don't talk to me about cocoa farmers scholarships and cocoa farmers housing scheme, because it's non-existent. I hope that the government will reintroduce, because they announced in the budget that they have stopped mass spraying. I hope that the government will introduce mass spraying and other agronomic practices that will inure to the benefit of Ghana through increasing yields. I'm happy that the government has for once listened to the opposition and acted promptly to save our already dying farmers.
It's not as if they listened to the farmers, right?
They never did.
So they listened to your opposition?
They probably didn't, but the reality was staring them in the face.
You are another
product of cocoa.
Okay, yes, a vociferous commentator on the subject of how critically we need to make sure the vulnerable in our society are also better served and tend to also take part in what we call the national cake, etc. Do you think that this is just one of the significant things that government is doing, just to say, well, we've done well as it is, but meaningfully also to make sure that cocoa farmers get what they are worth?
I'd say good morning to fellow Ghanaians. But the question I'll ask, is the knee-jerk reaction?
Meaning what should have happened 2 months ago?
Why shouldn't it? Should we wait for cocoa to be smuggled into Côte d'Ivoire before we take action?
So it's too late?
It's not too late. It's not too late, but it's late in coming. And really and truly, cocoa has been the mainstay of our economy for a long time before oil came in. I think apart from looking at the increase in cocoa prices, we should now look at what's the next stage, because we are still a primary export company of country for our products. Do we process cocoa? To what degree do we process cocoa? Do we process gold? To what degree do we process gold? That will bring added value to us. It will give us more money to be able to look at these things when we need to increase prices in cocoa. Look, the oil industry brought in much revenue 2011 to now. If we did not have that, we would be on our knees today. When you look at how the oil revenue was distributed amongst the various projects, if it weren't for that money that came in, we would be having problems. So apart from government increasing, which I should commend them for doing it, apart from them doing it, they should look at the added value issue, which we are not looking at today. I think it's very important.
For which we've paid a lot of lip service.
Yes,
for
a lot of lip
decades.
service. But you see, the other thing that we should also be looking at is the fact that a lot of these cocoa farmers are dying out.
I don't get you.
They're getting older.
So we don't have
Who are replacing them? It has to be attractive enough for the young to want to go into it. For somebody like me who's in business to say, it is good to have a cocoa farm. Let me go into it and help. Because the moment that generation dies out, forget it. We start getting decline in revenue from the cocoa industry. What then happens? Because we are not adding value anywhere. Give a typical example of Saudi Arabia. What are they known for? Oil. Their oil is beginning to deplete. What have they done so far? They have invested properly. And I keep saying, I'll continue to say, the national development plan of this country has to be put in place.
Now, if we have all these revenues, Doc, being given to cocoa farmers, it significantly also means that government has taken a critical look at the cocoa farmers. Now, what should be done beyond they all talk about making sure that the issues of housing as well as scholarships for cocoa farmers, as we have them, should always be an agenda for government?
Thank you. I don't want anybody to listen to this program and for a minute think that we are praising government for giving cocoa
Well, you're
farmers,
in the opposition, so
for giving farmers.
I think it's logical that you don't.
I'm saying that I'm commending government, but we are not praising government for giving the fair price to a cocoa farmer. Mr. Joshua will tell you that in the 50s and 60s, cocoa farmers sent their children, their offspring to schools abroad.
Yes.
That was the attractiveness of the cocoa farms. The richest people probably were the cocoa farmers.
Now times have changed. Even those offering services, involved in services, are even richer than cocoa farmers.
The reason why Ghana's primary crop was not cocoa. When the cocoa was introduced and the people in the Middle Belt felt that let's start developing cocoa farms, is because they saw the attractiveness and the benefits they will get. That's why my uncle was just telling you that they are a dying breed now. And if you don't make it attractive, if you go and get a huge world market price, and because of your own inefficiencies, you don't give them an acceptable remunerative price, nobody would like to go into cocoa farming. Nobody. That's why I talked about agronomic process, and he is also talking about value addition. We have a cocoa processing company, but what do we do to our cocoa? Our main crop that can yield better value added benefits for our farmers are sold before even they are bought. So it's only the light crop that is sold to the processing companies here, and they don't yield that much. So you have processing companies dotted around the country that are dying, that are operating at a loss. We have to rethink. We have to rethink the value addition in the cocoa farms to help the economy even better, to create more jobs. Imagine, I always tell people that the cocoa bean industry in the whole world is about a $10 billion industry. But the chocolate industry in the world is over 50 billion.
And it's increasing.
I'm telling you, the chocolate.
It's increasing.
The current president of Ukraine, Poroshenko, is a billionaire because of chocolate. He hasn't even seen the cocoa farm.
He doesn't need to.
Yes. So why would a country that wants to develop, when you talk about value addition, but when you talk about value addition, it's not only the export earnings that we are talking about. Employable skills for the TV masses. That is what is interesting to me.
I think the other thing that we are not doing right is the fact that at the present moment, President Mahama is chairman of ECOWAS. Cocoa comes from mostly the West African sub-region.
Not only.
Well, mostly.
The first and second and third producers are all around here.
West African region. What pressure are we putting on our European partners to make sure that we have a say in the pricing of cocoa. All the pricing is coming from where? It's coming from abroad. So if they sneeze, what happens to us? We catch cold badly and sometimes cholera. We have to be able to have control in terms of pricing of our commodities. We are in Africa. We said we are what? We are now at a middle income country, but have no control. What is all that
How do
about?
we put that on the policy agenda, and what role do we have the foremost agency or entity like the Cocoa Board playing in all these?
You put that on the policy agenda by making sure that all the countries that produce cocoa, all the countries that can produce cocoa, you bring them together as a critical mass to now put their issues across to the countries that determine these prices. Look, at the present moment, what have we gone to sign? And I just do not understand. Maybe my nephew here will be able to tell me. Why have we gone to sign this EPA thing? Why? Why do we need to sign that? When within our own selves we are not trading. Within our own selves. Within how many people do we have in the West African sub-region? Nearly 400 million people. You think we cannot generate the kinds of money we want to generate by doing this EPA thing? I think it's time we need to sit down and think of ourselves first, to be a hub, to be that powerhouse where we can now determine our prices. If we don't do that, then we are still following the old routes that my fathers and my uncles and my grandfathers followed.
They were probably more successful.
Yes.
Importantly, I remember some few years ago, a company was attracted or lured into this country because of the investment potential in cocoa. We're talking about Barry Callebaut. They came, built some nice houses,
ADM took
etc. And so, I mean, but if really we want to put a lot more value to whatever beans that we get out of the ports, how do we make sure we just don't invite investors, but locally also we attract the needed investment from entrepreneurs, from consortiums, etc.
Michael was saying something, and I want to go from there. Policy is a deliberate action and tool to re-engineer a change. It doesn't just happen. You must think through it, listen to all the ramifications, and decide. And that is why when, under Kufuor's government, when we felt that we want to bring back cocoa on the table, there was a careful, deliberate policy to give farmers a better price, to introduce good agronomic prices, and to entice the big players outside there here. But now the hampering thing, what is hampering really cocoa is that before the farmer, they have sold his cocoa. That is the problem. Look, previously, Cocoa Board, when I say this, the people think I'm being pedantic. Cocoa Board didn't have to go and borrow money to purchase it. They had enough reserve.
But times have changed.
No, don't say times have changed and just leave it like that.
Times have changed.
It is somebody's...
The needs of the country, the needs of the country have grown, and the population of the country and those needs.
It's not about population. It's not about population. Please listen carefully. It is somebody's deliberate policy to have used Cocoa Board as a backer, collateral to his deals in the oil industry. That broke the back of Cocoa Board. And I think that if we want to go back, if your children you are going to have in future, you have already pledged them to certain things, do you think your children will have a future? Your child or yet born, that I'm sitting here about the program.
We are talking about the resources we have, cocoa, oil, etc.
Yes, we have to. And we are not learning anything. That is the thing.
Well, you're members of parliament.
We are not learning anything. Why would government go and borrow 850 million to put up a gas processing plant and leave Tor to die?
Well,
does it make sense?
Yet you make the approvals for the loans. So.
I'm not saying it is bad. I'm saying it is good that we make a processing plant. But when we have another processing plant, which is Tor, why would you leave it to die?
How do we get the priorities right? From what he's saying, it's as if, well, we feel that A and B are important, but A is more important. It's as if we get the priorities wrong all the time.
I come back to my national development plan. I come back to that.
Why don't we have it?
And I come back to the fact that manifestos we have...
It's almost become a retro.
Manifestos we have in our political parties are useless. Are useless because they are not tagged to a national development plan. If the manifestos are tagged to a national development plan, you can see where you are going to target your revenues. We are not doing that. We do things by discretion. Money has come. Okay, let's go and put it in this project. Money has come. If you look at the spread 2012 of the investment that came from the oil revenue, in the spread of things they put it in, some of the projects they haven't even been able to finish because they spread it so thin that we are now looking for more money to finish some of those projects. Why?
And not that we didn't know.
Why? Is it because we want to tell people that, we've invested the money properly? Look at all these projects. But in the end, we don't tell them whether we finished them or we haven't finished them. For political expediency, because we want to win the next election. No. I'm waiting for the day a party, presidential candidate will come and say, I don't care if I win the next election or not. I'm doing the right thing.
Is it for political expediency? Because significantly, this would also ensure either production levels go up, well, I bet we only have a last quarter before the financial year closes, or also we've gone to the IMF, giving a lot more confidence to the investor community, and those who tend to watch us that we're really in for business, and so the city is even showing up.
How can going to IMF ensure investor confidence? Yeah, I don't know why. Especially if the reason why you're
it means that now we can be very prudent in our expenditure. We can't have overruns, etc.
If the reason why you are going to IMF is that your policy, I didn't say it, you want policy credibility, then we are in deep, I don't want to use the S word. If you go there and you say that your policy is not credible, that is why you are going there. I don't know how you're going to, because IMF is not going to develop the policy for you.
But is it not more of interpretation of that very phrase, policy credibility?
Who is interpreting it? It has not been said once. Who is interpreting it? What do you mean that you are going to IMF for policy credibility? How would you interpret that to anybody that you think I'm misinterpreting? It means the policies, the so-called over 100 policies that you started issuing from July 2012 till date. I direct, I do this, I do that, I instruct, I direct. There's no credibility. Why would there be no credibility? My uncle will tell you in the economic sphere, if somebody loses confidence in your word or your person, no matter what you do, your currency will crash.
Yes, to crash.
Just confidence.
To crash.
It will crash. So when you start touting, you think that you are being, look, anyway, Ghanaians have decided that we want short-termism. Like my uncle is saying, we don't want to bite the bullets. We want to get rich quick. It's permeating the society so much that everybody wants to build. Everybody wants to own. Everybody wants to, there's no long-term thinking that let's do high purchase. Look at the value of money locked up in people's property. If that it was freed through long-term financing schemes, this country would have been very, very rich. If I live in a $1 million house, what is the benefit? It's $1 million locked forever. Just turn that around, and there's a long-term mortgage industry. And every country is the pensioners' money that develops expectations. It's the pensioners' money because they can invest in long term. And what have we done with our pension money? Even our tier 2 pension money, our central bank.
He made a point significantly about us always thinking of the next election. Your party, for example, the NPP, is foremost at the forefront to say, well, if this government is not doing well, then Ghanaians are likely going to be saying that's the next party in power, etc. Are you also thinking along those lines, doing what is parochial more than what is supposed to be nationalistic?
Maybe let us look at the evidence. 57 years, NDC and its cohorts have been in power for 27, longer than Osagyef's party.
Well, it doesn't matter.
It matters so much.
The past is the past. Now we have to move forward.
You see, without your history, you are useless.
Exactly.
Well, true. You acknowledge your history, but your history only guides you forward.
No, it doesn't guide you forward. It tells you how silly you have been or how well you have thought. Look, I was just talking with the minister yesterday in Parliament. I said, in 1980, Ghana and South Korea all had military dictatorships. So it is not even only the fact that it was all military dictatorship I'm talking about. It is because ours were bankrupt of ideas. It was full of vengeance. And look at what is still leading us today. Look, you have to understand that the NDC can never get out of IMF programs. Spain, Ireland, Greece, they all get out. From 83 to 2000, the longest history of IMF program was in Ghana. President Kufuor came, took us there 4 years, we were out of an IMF dictated program.
So you're saying it should always be the NPP?
No.
That would take us off
the thinking should be different. I don't mind if you give
That's what I'm asking.
I don't mind if you
What is the next thinking of your party? Supposing your party is going to be left
Ghana,
after 2016.
when I say Ghana deserves better, I'm not talking about MPP alone. Any party that can put up a credible program that Ghanaians believe in is better than this government. Look, from 2009, Atta Mills came and our fundamentals were good. He took us into an IMF program. What was that program? Significantly, between 2009 and 2012, they were told no new employment. Go and look at those things. We didn't employ. President Mahama is taking us to another program that is even now going to talk about retrenchment. Well, did we go or did we come?
But you see, but this very argument about what the conclusions are with the IMF, or will likely be, and the conditionalities are, have always been denied by state officials about whether there will be not necessarily wage cuts, but
look at the homegrown policies.
Reduction,
look at the homegrown policies.
Reduction in jobs, etc. With the IMF, I mean.
You see, we are looking at short term. We're looking at short term. This IMF thing we are going into matures 2020, no, 2021, 2022, 25. Do you know how much money we are going to pay in those years? Over $334 million. Do we know what is going to happen when we get there? Do not let's take this thing as something that is now, so it's going to give us credibility. The long term, it's our children who are going to suffer. So we need to sit down and make sure that we can develop our country. We can build the industries. We can create the employment that is required for our people to have money in their pockets. Those are the things we should be looking at. How can you, yes, loans are good, but how can you run your whole economy on loans? How? If the oil industry if the oil industry didn't come in, we would be on our knees today. And you see, this is why we should be very careful of the resource curse. We should be very careful, because it looks as if we would be gyrating only into the oil revenue and leave the other things that can build this country.